What's up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys either like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright, y'all, so today we are going to do something a little bit different. In light of all of the negativity that unfortunately surrounds the gig scene, I think it's a good idea to take a step back every now and then and acknowledge the positives that gig work does bring us. Although it might be hard to find these positives through all of the BS that we have to go through, sometimes it's that little bit of light that keeps us coming back. So the first question to ask is, why did you get into gig work in the first place? Now, for myself, I have an unofficial and an official time of when I started gig work. And if you've been around for a bit, I did tell this story, but for those who have not heard it, I'll go ahead and give you a quick rundown of my backstory. Now, my gig journey started in 2020, like a lot of other people did. But the reason I got into gig work was because, well, to be quite honest, I wanted something to do. Now, I still had my W-2 job, but we were sent home to work remotely. And when you're used to being in an office setting, you know, interacting with people on a regular and just constantly being on the move, going from that to just being stationary at your desk at home by yourself, you know, that starts to kind of wear on you a little bit. So my husband still had to go into the office, so it literally was me and my cats all day, every day, 5 days a week. And for some reason it popped up in my mind. I said, man, what if I did something that got me out of the house and I was able to go ahead and bring in a few extra dollars? And the idea of DoorDash popped up. So I started doing DoorDash during my lunch, and I would knock out maybe 2, maybe 3 deliveries if I'm lucky. And because people were super generous with tips back in the day, you know, if you wanted to take the time to go ahead and brave the pandemic to go out and do this favor for a person, deliver their food, deliver their groceries, you know, people were super appreciative. It wasn't uncommon where I was able to bring in $30, sometimes $40 within that 1 hour of doing DoorDash. So yeah, it was great. So I did this for a very short time, and eventually in 2022, this was when I officially got into gig work. And if you're from Illinois, or if you are familiar with Illinois, the taxes here, specifically property taxes, they are a headache. So I was one of the unlucky few that got screwed over by property taxes, and I owed more than I could really afford off of my salary. So myself and my husband, we started to do Amazon Flex. I looked into other apps. I started this channel, and now we're here today. So that's my story. Now, this leads me into my next question, which is, why do you enjoy gig work? Like I just explained to you guys, my whole backstory on why I got into gig work. I got into gig work because of financial reasons. I needed to close that gap on the amount of money that I had owed at that time. And honestly, this is the reason why a lot of people get into gig work, is for financial reasons. Because we all need money, right? That's the norm. We need to survive. We need to pay our bills. But how many of you can say that you were able to go out and make extra money at your own leisure before gig work, and legally, of course? You know, how many people were able to say they were able to do that before they got into gig work? Obviously, there are plenty of ways that you can make money outside of gig work, but gig work made making money on the side so much more accessible, because you just had to download an app, sign up, and you're good. You go out there, hit the road, do some deliveries, and that was it. Because here's the thing, how many of my W-2 workers can go up to their boss right now and say, hey, I need a raise. I got something coming up. I got this issue going on. I need some extra money. You know, some jobs, you know, you might be able to pick up an extra shift. Maybe you can get some OT. But if you're salaried, like I'm salaried, for instance, you know, OT technically doesn't exist for you, right? I know there is this new bill or law passed in regards to OT for salaried positions, but even then, you know, if you just straight up wanted to get a raise because you felt like you were deserving of a raise, How many of you, by a show of hands, can say that they're able to go up to their boss today and get a raise and have it get kicked in within a week or a month? I'm not talking about for next year's annual increase or after your evaluations or anything like that. I'm talking about today. If you were to go into your boss's office today and say, hey, I'm in a pickle, I need some extra money, what can we do? Like, what are the options? How many of y'all can say that y'all are able to go ahead and walk out of there with a raise? Show of hands. Show of hands. While there might be a few, I'm pretty sure a majority of us, we aren't going to go ahead and get that raise, right? So instead of relying on them to give us the money that we need, we can just go ahead and turn on an app, and we can work in the morning, we can work in the afternoon, we can work in the evening, we can work when we want to, for however long we want to. And that's the beauty of gig work. That's the beauty of the independence, the flexibility that everybody loves about gig work, right? People have used gig work to pay off debts. They've used it to save up money for a rainy day or for a vacation coming up. And some people have taken it a step further and they have made that income from gig work their retirement fund. So every bit of money that they get, they put it to the side in this account that's constantly building and building and building. And before you know it, they might have themselves a decent little account right there for retirement. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the money that you're making off of gig work. Now, obviously, financials are probably going to be the primary reason for a majority of gig workers. There are other reasons why people enjoy gig work as well. I've seen a handful of comments from folks who are retired and they just love gig work. Again, in regards to financials, sometimes that fixed income that you're getting, it might not be enough. So you might decide, I can do a little bit of gig work to pay specifically for this bill. Maybe that money pays for your groceries for the month or whatever it may be. It's supplemental income. But there are actually a lot of people who say that they enjoy doing gig work because it gets them out of the house, it gets them moving. Being cooped up all day in the house is not fun for some people. Kind of similar to why I started doing DoorDash back in 2020. Not having that human interaction, sometimes it can take a toll on you. And sometimes you just want to get out and talk to people and meet new people. And speaking of, getting out and meeting new people can actually be very beneficial for those who want to network as well. I've already said this a few times before. Gig work should be used as a stepping stone. Some people might use gig work to build their clientele with their own business. Maybe they're using it to get into other forms of independent work. Or maybe they just simply want to learn the functionality and see what it means to be a driver because maybe they want to make a better gig app. A lot of people do not see gig work as being sustainable long term, and that you should use it to transition into something better down the line. Again, using gig work as a stepping stone, which I agree with 100%. Because the reality of it is, a lot of people are simply getting frustrated with everything that's been going on. With the illegals, with the bots, with the low pay, and everything that has been making gig work unbearable. Combine that with the fact that you are still responsible for your own vehicle, so your maintenance, your gas, and then of course you got to go ahead and pay taxes at the end of the year after all of this. Maybe a few years ago it was a lot easier to manage, but today, in today's gig economy, it's just simply a mess. And that's mainly because not only are the expenses much higher, all of the hoops that you got to go ahead and jump through just to get that pay, sometimes it's not even worth it. And with all of these factors combined, it does make it a bit more difficult to not only meet your goals, but to say that you're actually enjoying doing this type of work. And there's nothing wrong with that. Emotion is what makes us human in the first place. Being mad or upset about the situation, that's perfectly normal. Even myself, I might find myself getting upset during a delivery when something isn't going as expected, but that's just a temporary obstacle. And you should try your best to not let those obstacles get in the way of what you're trying to do. I literally just did food delivery the other day for the first time in probably about a year or so, right? And I saw trash orders on top of trash orders on top of trash orders. And while I technically didn't make a lot of money at the end of my run, I still did genuinely enjoy getting out there. I wanted to get out there to see what everybody was talking about. And plus, I just kind of wanted to get out the house a little bit, get some steps in, stretch a little bit, and go from there. There's a much bigger plan for me. And picking up those food delivery orders, that's just a part of the process. So try to look beyond all of this BS that you have to go through. and keep your eye on your goal. Whether your goal is a short-term goal and you're trying to make a certain amount of money by the end of the week, or you have something more long-term in mind that you're trying to accomplish within the next year or so, just stick with it and remember the real reason why you're doing gig work. Because the more you focus on that, the more you'll just breeze by all of this, and you might find yourself actually enjoying yourself more. Not to say that this is gonna be your favorite thing in the world, but you're not gonna dread turning on the apps. You can know what to expect from the apps, but you know that you're doing this because you're working towards something. And again, I know for some folks, you know, this might be hard. It might be hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. I get it. But honestly, if you find that the negatives are outweighing the positives, then you might want to have a conversation with yourself and decide if this is still the direction that you want to go. Things have evolved over time, and it's getting tougher and tougher day by day to make it through this. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. You might just have a different calling, but just ask yourself those 2 questions that I asked in the beginning. Why did you get into gig work in the first place? And what are some of the reasons that make you enjoy gig work? And answer those questions and go from there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, I kind of wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. Like I said, with so much negativity surrounding the gig space, you know, I know there might be some things that I talk about or things that I might mention that might come off as negative. You know, that's never my intention. You know, it's more or less to bring awareness to certain topics that I feel like some people may not be talking about enough. And unfortunately, some of those topics, you know, they do have a negative aspect surrounding it. So, but like I said, it's more or less to bring awareness to certain topics and things like that. But I felt like it would be a good idea to, you know, have a breath of fresh air and talk about some of the positive aspects when it comes to gig work. Because, you know, every now and then I see those comments, you know, I see people telling their stories about how either, you know, they got started in gig work or they know somebody that got started in gig work, and, you know, how it helped them evolve into what they are today. But it is good hearing those stories that, you know, there are some people that use gig work to, you know, take themselves to the next level, or it helped them overcome an obstacle, you know, whether it may be financially or, you know, whatever it may be. You know, hearing those positive stories, you know, that's what keeps me coming back, right? And I hope to have a story like that one day where I can tell you guys, you know, how I started, what I did, and how I got to the next level. So, but like I said earlier, you know, just sticking with it. I know it's rough right now, but, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, just stick with it, stay positive, stay on this journey, and before you know it, you're gonna be right where you wanna be. So yeah, just stick with it, stick with it. Now, just like how I asked in the video, I have to ask you guys the same thing. What is the reason that you got into gig work in the first place? And what are some of the things that keep you coming back to gig work? And better yet, what are some of the positive outcomes that you have had due to gig work? So I would love to hear your stories. Feel free to share and let me know in the comments. Now, before I go, I have to remind you guys to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.